Okay, now I want to quickly mention about the Orchid Rescue Project that Mel helped us organize. That was at Lokoea Farms, Haleiwa. Many of these pictures are in your newsletter, so I'm just going to briefly mention them. But here I am at the gate at the front door area there. And I think it's something like 8 acres of fruit farm. It was very successful. We had 23 volunteer workers. Weather was good. Everyone did well. And we finished in about 3 hours time, working very hard. It was more of a service project than a rescue. In my years as being with Honolulu Orchid Society, we don't really get much of a chance to provide service for the community. So this one was especially good. The owner, Noah Newman, was very pleased with all of the cleanup that we could perform and getting the orchid plants out of that area. So we really want to thank our volunteers and thank Mel for his work. Here's a picture of me in the large shade house area there before the cleanup. So you can see there's a lot of dead plants and a lot of plants that haven't really been tended to. There was an automatic sprinkler system in there, but not much else. And there was, there was an idea that the family would take care of those plants, but it was just too much work for them. Here is the area on the right. You can see how the benches were cleaned off. So when we finished, all of that area became available for the nursery to use for their taking care of fruit plants and further work that they were going to do. So it was a big success in terms of making that workspace better. Here I am on the outside. I'm standing in front of the vandas. There's something like, maybe 25 feet by 40 feet worth of vandas stretching up anywhere from 8 feet to about 12 feet tall. And so we had to cut them off and try to save what we could. And then on the right bottom picture, you can see what it looked like after we had finished clearing the area and taking everything away. So they're going to use that area for fruit trees and for growing plants for their nursery business. Here is Ben. So Ben Kodama Jr., thank you very much for accepting many of the plants that we brought over. So here he is in front of several trays of vandas that were cut, and then some pictures on the bottom, a Cattleya hybrid on the left and a Neophanetia hybrid on the right bottom that were salvaged from the shade house area. So many thanks to Ben Jr. Okay, so what is this? This is an opportunity for us to experiment and grow vandas that we were able to get. So you should, members and others should feel free to be creative and try new things. Vandas will grow in many different ways: pots, baskets, mounted, tied to trees, post, fence, anything nearly. These plants were growing in full sun without a sprinkler system. There was just rainwater, and they were growing for like 20 or 25 years. If you can, and if the plants do bloom in the future, go ahead and take pictures and be sure to share it with us. So here I wanted to show you some pictures. These are pictures of the actual plants that we were able to save. So potting bare root vandas. Here on the left, there's a long cane with keikis at the bottom and then a curved cane extending to the left. So here I wanted to demonstrate you can cut off a cane with at least 3 active plump growing roots, and that would be a good place to start. So after I cut it, I have 1 cutting on the left with more than 3 roots, so I could even trim that more, and good double growth, double keiki growth on the right. Here I want to show that on the far left, there are the old dead leaf sheaths that are on top of the cane that may be blocking new roots from popping out. So once those are all removed, it'll look like the cane in the middle, which is bare, which is still fine. So I did that to one, and then in about 3 weeks, it had small root growths coming out, and that's what you're seeing on the right. And you need those new roots in order for the plant to grow. If no new roots come out, then it's very hard for the plant to recover. Here I wanted to show what it looks like to soften the cane. So I actually put that cane on the left in a large pot of water to soften it a little bit. And then I used some stiff stakes and tied it so I could straighten it out. So the same one on the left picture was straightened out, and that created the picture on the right. And actually I did that within about 10 minutes. So it doesn't have to take that long. You can also bend it incrementally. Here I wanted to show on the left a large 12-inch slotted plastic pot with a stainless steel frame. And we actually have a few of them used for sale, $15 for one as a donation, or two for $25. I still have about 4 available. If anyone's interested, please let me know. And then a picture of 2 vandas, kind of 2 to 3 foot vandas that are strapped to the metal frame. The frame stands 36 inches tall. And then on the right, a 6-inch cement pot. And I put some styrofoam on the bottom and tied some wooden stakes to it to give it a little bit of support. And then the picture to the right shows some dendrobium cuttings in there. Not much media at all. I'm just using the styrofoam. I have found that if you put too many dendrobiums in that cement pot and you put too much media in there, it tends to hold moisture too much. So styrofoam is pretty good about allowing it to dry out. Here we see a picture on the left, medium-sized vandas, multiple ones in plastic baskets with wire hangers. You could add media to it, possibly. These I water frequently, so I don't need media in it. And on the right, I tied some very curly but tall vandas to a coconut tree. And so they can grow on fence or posts, on a wall, on anything vertical. So trees would be nice, palm trees would be nice. In partial shade would be good. Okay, so here I wrote a little bit about using media. So in the examples I made previously, there was no media. There was just empty baskets, empty pots, just styrofoam. You can use foam. Usually you can get them from purchases that you make. I save some chunks and break them by hand into large pieces. This prevents root rot, can provide good airflow, and it doesn't ever break down. Or you can use large bark or hapu chunks if available. This gives some air gaps, holds some moisture, and lasts longer than other smaller bark. You can use sphagnum moss. This is particularly good if you have a small basket or you're mounting. Provides more moisture for small plants or for delicate roots, but it does break down in about 6 to 12 months. Or you can use hina moss. That can be around the roots. That kind of helps to hold a little bit of moisture around the roots. So when you water it, that's available too. And usually the moss grows quite well. And finally, there are some weights that you can put in the pots because there's not much media in there, and they will tip over if the plant is very tall. You can put bricks or clay pots or concrete pots or large rocks, anything that will give it some weight. So to review, plant care with new cuttings. These plants were shocked when we removed them from the growing area. So you always have to realize that. They need daily water or regular watering and partial sun, perhaps morning sun, to get acclimated. I would avoid full sun until they get adjusted a little bit more. And you should always monitor them, look at the leaves for drying out. If there's no media, they really can take quite a bit of water. Allow to adjust to your new growing area for a month or two before considering fertilizing and at a low strength. And then you can always plant 1 to 3 plus plants per container, depending on the size of the container. Remember, don't overpot. If you choose to use media, you really want that air to dry out those roots. And you need to give large vandas room for their roots to grow, either in a large empty container or with some space below the basket so the roots can hang down. Or as the roots grow long, you can kind of twirl them around, tie them up, braid them, or do other things. Okay, so here are some pictures. I showed the right upper picture to Leyland Nakai because he grows a lot of vandas, and he responded with showing me the picture in the upper left. So in the upper left, that's Leyland's Papilionanda Summer Delight. And then the upper right is an orange Vanda hybrid that's in bloom from one of the plants that was rescued. So they look very similar. And so that gives you some idea of what we might have. Certainly not many of the plants were actually blooming. The bottom left Vanda hybrid and the bottom right Ascocenda red hybrid are blooms from the actual cuttings. So 3 of these are examples of flowers that come from the plants that we will be distributing. And mahalo to Lokoea Farms for donating these plants.